Chapter 12. And I thought autism was tough. Had I only 5 children, I would have sworn that my non-traditional way of schooling was the key to producing a scholar. Child number 6 taught me just how wrong I was. James was the boy in the nursery rhyme that goes, "Snakes and snails and puppy dog tails. That is what little boys are made of." He climbed a 50-foot tree at 3 years old, much to my horror. He would crawl out of the windows of our house onto a very short, steep roof, so we had to lock the windows to keep him in. He never wore shoes, even out in the forest. He could catch any critter he set his sights on. He earned the nickname Huckleberry, and true to his namesake, he had no interest in reading whatsoever. He learned the sounds of the individual letters with ease, so I initially thought reading was going to be a home run. Years went by, and he still wasn't a fluid reader. At 8 years old, he was assessed and found to have profound dyslexia. I felt like a complete failure as a mom. How did I miss this for so long? We tried several different dyslexia programs, but none were realistic due to his ADHD. He just couldn't focus long enough, and I was not going to medicate him. After the success with the twins, my answer to every problem was make a video. It was from working with James that the Gemini reading program was born. I needed to produce something that could be viewed while he was jumping on a trampoline or swinging from the ceiling. It had to work on a neurological level. Hooked on phonics was great to get kids by, but it wasn't going to influence the underlying brain function that was causing the problem. Through research, I found that dyslexia can be every bit an auditory processing disorder as a reading problem. I believed this to be the case with James, as he could name any letter sound, but when the letters were strung together, he couldn't sound out a complete word. I needed him to see and hear the sounds in a continuous way. By using the discrete video modeling method of filming close-ups of the mouth and creating a reading series with progressively more complex phonemes, I hoped to train James' brain to see and hear the sounds of the letter combinations simultaneously. The greatest thing about this is that he could watch videos in the car or while he was eating. Thankfully, he didn't have to just sit and focus, because that simply wasn't possible. Teaching James to read in this manner wasn't an overnight success. It took nearly as long as it did to teach John to talk, but it worked. He started to read fluently. He caught up to his peers. And now at 17, he reads complex postgraduate material on the financial markets and spends hours researching. As is common with ADHD, the reading material needs to be of high interest for him to stay focused and not have his mind wander. But I'll take that over the prognosis I was given when he was 8 years old any day of the week. The Gemini Dyslexia and Early Reading Program, I have no doubt, will change the world. Dyslexia wreaks much more havoc on our society than many people realize. The dyslexic brain tends to be highly creative and can multitask exceptionally well. Dyslexic people tend to be brilliant problem solvers. They are disenfranchised from our academic-focused society during school years. We do not yet have published research with dyslexia, so I don't have the statistical data, but it is forthcoming. The anecdotes, however, are jaw-dropping. One case in particular comes to mind. Mia was a 13-year-old girl who was a typical teenager in every way, except that she couldn't read. In fact, she barely knew the sounds of the letters. This was despite her parents spending close to $1 million on therapy. They literally tried everything to get her to read, until a brain scan at UCLA found that she had no semantic overlap between her auditory and visual planes. Researchers counseled Mia's parents to stop trying to force her to read and instead to buy her technology that would read for her and would take dictation. They said that no matter what they tried, her brain structure was never going to allow her to read. The problems associated with total illiteracy go far beyond academic. Our very social society is based on text messages. We need to read everything from road signs to product labels and menus. Mia couldn't do that. Her hair always appeared greasy as her mother found that she'd been using conditioner instead of shampoo, due to not being able to decipher the labels. Mia had to wait until all her friends ordered food at the restaurant and then say, "I'll have what she's having." This problem that total illiteracy causes would only escalate and escalate considerably as she got older. At the end of Mia's 7th grade year, I was introduced to her mother by a mutual friend. I told her about the Gemini online program and said that she had nothing to lose to try. She was skeptical, to say the least, but I don't think she could have lived with herself if she didn't at least give Mia the choice to try it. Mia agreed to use Gemini over the summer, although it was going to be challenging. The family had planned a trip to Greece for several weeks, and internet service there would be intermittent at best. Despite all the technical challenges, being on vacation, and the irresponsibility that goes hand in hand with being 13, Mia somehow managed to watch the videos for about 30 minutes a day. She also kept it up when they got back home, and, with the aid of her reading tutor, incorporated more of the Gemini learning tools into her daily routine. At the end of 6 weeks, she had increased her reading by 4 grade levels. Her mother claims it is a miracle. I can't really disagree. The results were more than even I had hoped for. Today, Mia is enrolled in a public high school and takes regular ed classes. She plans on attending university and wants to be an educational counselor to help other children, the way Gemini and her reading therapists helped her. After my experience with James, I was on the lookout when I had Luke, child number 7. By the time he was 6 months old, it was clear that he wasn't autistic, at least not from birth as the twins had been. But when he started to talk, something was wrong. None of the baby talk sounded anything like the real word. Luke's name for his brother Anthony was Wobies, and for James it was Teetsy, and so on. I learned this was a potential early indicator of an auditory processing disorder, so I started him on Gemini at 15 months. By the time he was 22 months, his baby talk had progressed to more typical speech, and he was not only intelligible but advanced. I was hoping that we were out of the woods on dyslexia too, but no dice. Little Luke is the only one of my children who will go through all his elementary education at school, not at home. We made this decision not from a change of heart about homeschooling, but because we were fortunate to find a new, unique school that was in line with our goals: Chinese. From the time I learned that I was pregnant with Luke, I had planned to teach him Chinese. When he was just a few months old, I would play YouTube videos in Chinese and let them run in the background while he played. Why Chinese? Most people assume I have an interest in the language because China is a rising star in the global markets. Although this is a bonus, this isn't the main reason. The main reason is more neurological than anything else. Learning Chinese has direct benefits on recall. Working memory, or digit span, is the ability to remember information and retrieve it quickly. Intelligence tests have more to do with processing speed than anything else. It has been shown that people with average IQs can come up with the same answers as gifted people, if you just give them enough time. The internet is destroying our memory. Before its invention, the average English speaker had a digit span of 7, which means they could remember 7 pieces of information in a list. American phone numbers had 7 digits for this reason. Years ago, a professor at Yale University explained to me that people who speak a tonal language like Chinese will often have a digit span up to 10. This researcher believed that the memories of Chinese people grew to accommodate their language, as they must learn not only how the word sounds, but the tone in which it is said. To read, they must memorize each word separately, as they don't have an alphabet. Chinese have developed a legendary work ethic in academics. If you don't work hard, you don't learn how to read. Due to today's technology memorizing everything for us, English speakers' digit spans have deteriorated to only 4, which means that our sequential processing never makes it above a typically developing 4-year-old child. If you go onto a top U.S. university campus and see a majority of Asian faces, this may be one of the reasons why. Their memory capability is far superior to those who speak only English. Without the ability to synthesize information quickly, it takes much longer to solve problems. The longer it takes to solve problems, the longer the problems persist and the more damage they cause. On the macro scale, this really isn't an issue because through technology, we now have many more brains working on problem solving. But on the micro scale, like the problems that come up in one's own life and in one's own family, it can be devastating. Success in life is defined by how well and how quickly one can solve the everyday problems that arise through just existing on this planet. For those with slow processing speeds, problems can pile up and become seemingly insurmountable. I wonder if this isn't one of the causes behind the meteoric rise in clinical depression, especially among the generation who has been raised with the internet and technology. Millennials are infamously lacking in problem-solving skills. Most people blame it on their lack of resilience and grit, but I wonder if it isn't more fundamental. Maybe they honestly can't solve simple day-to-day problems as fast as they arrive. The procrastination that this delay creates heaps up so many problems that they are just overwhelmed. They feel helpless and hopeless, which is the root of all depression. The recent research showing that increasing alpha wave activity can decrease depression supports this hypothesis. The greater the alpha, the easier the problem solving. Hopelessness decreases and depression is thwarted. People with learning exceptionalities from autism to Down syndrome to dyslexia typically have poor working memories. This will impede everything from word retrieval, that feeling when you have a word right on the tip of your tongue, to reading fluency. As children, most of these people are diagnosed with working memory issues during school assessments, but due to the time it takes for traditional remediation methods, the school rarely, if ever, treat the memory problem. We created the Gemini working memory game for this very reason. Students can, on their own, work to improve their digit span, and the results we are seeing with those who play the game faithfully each day have been impressive. I myself have seen my son go from a digit span of 2 to a 7 in 18 months, which equates to about 5 years of memory development. As his digit span has increased, his reading and even his behavior at school have improved. He still has a long way to go, but he is making substantial progress. Not every American kid will learn Chinese. If you really want to get as much as you can from Gemini for your child, the working memory game needs to be part of their daily routine. There is not much point to learning if the student can't remember what they learn.